Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Boots Herrera, Director and Chief Curator of the Ateneo Art Gallery. If you remember, around this time last year, we were overwhelmed by a feeling of helplessness, not knowing the extent of the impact of COVID 19 had and will have on our lives. The world was still grappling with the best ways to protect ourselves and how to move forward slowly towards a sense of normalcy. In our own way, as a university art museum, the Ateneo Art Gallery turned towards artists and educators as partners. It was important to define and construct platforms for collaborations and to reach out to audiences who were struggling with anxieties and uncertainties of the times. Although the experience of on site visits is irreplaceable, developing programs with and for educators was our primary focus as a path towards defining the new and better normal. Before the pandemic hit, AAG was already planning the next project with Teach for the Philippines, our program partner since 2018. Together with support from the Museum Foundation, we have brought together some 300 students from public schools in Metro Manila for a half-day visit to Ateneo Art Gallery. The visit was intended to be more than a straightforward one, but more engaging where museum and classroom experiences complement each other. The lockdown and the quarantine did not really restrict our moves. Rather, it allowed us to expand and explore other partnerships to develop new content, design approach, and audience reach. Today, we mark the last day of May as the Heritage Month, and also in line with the International Museums Day theme of the future of museums, recover and reimagine. We thought of inviting our collaborators in education programming, namely Teach for the Philippines and Canva Manila, to share with us their respective programs and experiences as they reimagine new modes of education and learning. I will now pass on the virtual stage to Esti Bagos, our Museum Education Officer. She has been closely working with these two partners and the two angels who will be speaking with us today. So Esti would be the best person to moderate this session. Esti?
Thank you, Ms. Boots. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Art Speak. So to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Angel Ramos, Marketing, Events, and Communications Director for Teach for the Philippines. So Angel has spent over a decade honing her expertise in strategic communications and strength in stakeholder management across various industries. So as head of marketing, events, and communications at TFP, she advocates stories of hope from the public school. Working in social development has taught her to see the potential in everything and everyone, to keep on doing things excellently, and to always choose what is right for her children and for our country. She graduated with a degree in communication arts from the De La Salle University, Manila, and has masteral units in creative writing from the same university. So may we please have Ms. Angel Ramos from TFP.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. So before I start with my presentation, I'd like to ask the team to play a video of one of our partnership activities with Ateneo Art Gallery.
The main objective of partnering with Teach for the Philippines is expanding our audience. Our objective is really to bring in schools that don't normally visit Ateneo Art Gallery. So it's important to give them that opportunity.
Dun pa lang po sa pagpasok dun sa building po, na-amaze na po ako. Ang ganda po talaga.
It's very fulfilling to see how school children respond to the works of these contemporary artists. They see the relevance.
Yung nakita ko po ngayon sa art gallery po dito is, depende po sa perspective nyo. Wala pong maling sa isang artwork.
Ang favorite ko po na artwork, yung sa Marawi din.
Yung karosa po na gawa ni Fernando Zobel.
Ang naka-inspire po sa akin, gawa po ni Pablo Baen Santos.
Ang pinaka-favorite artwork ko po na nakita dito is yung ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Yung pagpapakita po na hindi po tama, ginawa niya pong art po yun, which is nakaka-amaze din po talaga na sobra.
Ang pinaka-favorite artwork ko po ngayon is, eto po, yung Querida po. Nagpapakita po siya ng mga nangyari na kasalukuyan po.
Ang natutunan ko po ay hindi lang po para sa mga magarbo yung mga artwork, kundi din po dun sa kaalaman din po na matututunan.
May mga bagay din po dito sa gallery po na akala mo po wala pong meaning, pero may art din po pala doon.
Na hindi po dapat binabaliwala at dapat po itong pahalagahan. Ito po ay masterpiece.
Thank you. All right. So let me just share my screen real quick. All right. So again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angel Ramos from the Marketing and Events team of Teach for the Philippines. I joined Teach for the Philippines in 2013, and since then I've run roughly around 100 events for and with our public school communities. Especially before the pandemic, we've had several of these community engagement activities, but my favorite of them all is the one that you saw earlier. And it's always been these learning trips that have been like super inspiring for me. So at Teach for the Philippines, we call these flip trips because the concept revolved around flipping the idea of learning. The series of trips that we did before aimed to bring kids out of the classroom to expand their view of the world and show them that learning can happen outside of the four walls of the classroom. On a more personal note, these trips had been my favorite because it's always been at this time of the year that I get to see firsthand our kids' faces light up with joy every time that we take them to an educational institution like a museum. So every time we take them there, and every year I always get to meet a student or a kid whose stories take away from the trip also fuels my daily grind. So you might have seen her in the video. So for these set of trips in particular, my inspiration had been fueled by her. So she's Cassandra. She's an elementary student back then from a public school in Navotas City. So at the end of every trip, as you've seen earlier, the team interviews students about what they liked the most about the trip and what they learned. So aside from having content for the highlights video and of course, it's also our way of assessing whether the event had met its learning objectives. So what didn't make the final cut though is what I continue to remember this day from that trip. So what Cassandra said about why she liked the work of Pablo Baen Santos had been because of her dream. So she said that when she grows up, she wants to be a lawyer. And when we asked her why she wanted to become a lawyer, she said, gusto ko po kasing maipaglaban yung mga taong nangangailangan ng tulong. And the reason why she liked the works of Pablo Baen Santos was because it helped her express why she also wants to become a lawyer who helps give voice to others. So you'll see on the screen some of the works that are from Pablo Baen Santos that are available in the Ateneo Art Gallery. So suffice to say, meeting Cassandra that day gave me more than enough reason to get up every day to do the work. Meeting and hearing from Cassandra also embodies the reason why Teach for the Philippines exists as an organization. So as you know, access to quality education is a huge challenge in our country. And so as a nonprofit organization, we at Teach for the Philippines are working towards a vision that all Filipino children will benefit from an excellent, inclusive, and relevant education. Our history and track record as an organization is deeply rooted in education reform work in the country. We actually stand on the shoulders of a giant called Saklat Sikat Foundation, who has been working alongside the Department of Education since 1999 by implementing 30-day reading programs that trained over 25,000 teachers in over 10,000 schools across the country for over 12 years since 1999. And in 2012, we officially transitioned to become Teach for the Philippines, and we expanded our impact on improving teacher quality and addressing education challenges at the system level. So as an organization, we do this by enlisting promising Filipinos with high leadership potential to join our work for education reform. We recognize that functional literacy and life skills when provided by a transformational teacher changes students' life paths. So in turn, this helps us build a country where equitable access to quality education opens up opportunities for Filipinos to improve their lives and reach their full potential. So more concretely, we do this through our three core programs, which you see on your screen. So we have three. The oldest and probably the most well-known of which is the fellowship program. So this is where we recruit fresh graduates and young professionals to teach for 2 years in public schools across the Philippines. The idea being that if they are able to see and experience firsthand what it's like to be a public school teacher, then after the 2 year commitment of teaching and serving the communities where they're placed, education and education reform will always be at the forefront of their minds. So after their 2 year commitment, they have the option of going on to our the third year extension program, which is like ambassadors program. This particular program hopes to bridge the gap between central offices who create policies and programs for education frontliners like our teachers who work in the field with information that is gathered and also experienced by our fellows on the ground. So by being the people who have experienced the public school system firsthand for 2 years, they are able to bring insights and information that they've gathered to the offices to create the policies and programs in order to create relevant laws, policies, orders that can benefit the teachers who work in the field. We also have a third program which engages tenured public school teachers, so those who are already within the DepEd teaching force, because we recognize that talent already exists within the Department of Education, and our work with them hopes to provide them with specialized professional development that is in line both with what they want to achieve as instructional leaders and also what they hope to bring in as an added value to their communities. So these three core programs taken together also work towards providing what we call our student development programs. So as mentioned earlier, as an organization, we believe that changing our education system doesn't just need to happen from the top, meaning the offices that make the policies and the programs, but also on the ground level, but on a more immediate note, also with our students in developing their functional literacy and life skills. So on the ground, our new and tenured public school teachers roll out what we call our functional literacy program and the Batang Bayani Life Skills program. So these two programs complement the education that our public school students receive via the DepEd K-12 curriculum. Especially for the functional literacy program, our goal here is to reduce the number of non-readers and upscale their numeracy skills in the schools where we are currently placed. Similarly, because we believe that life skills like self-confidence, growth mindset, and pro-social skills, among others, play a huge role in ensuring that our students grow up to be responsible Filipino citizens who positively contribute to our country. Hence, we developed them via the Batang Bayani Life Skills Program. So currently, Teach for the Philippines core programs engage a total of 63 teachers assigned in 32 public schools across 12 local governments in the Philippines. Admittedly, we are a drop in the ocean in that is the Philippine education system, which leads me to one of our general beliefs at the organization, which is that we can't do this alone. So as we know, the challenge of education reform in the Philippines is daunting for just one organization to be able to achieve. And it's even daunting just for like our government partners. And so it's with this belief that we engage and we work with both private and public partners, because we believe that to be able to transform our public school system means that we have to work together with different sectors at different levels so that all of us can work together towards one goal, which is providing access to quality education for our children. This is the same belief that fuels our partnership with the Ateneo Art Gallery. And since we started our partnership in 2018, we've actually had two sets of field trips in 2018 and 2019, which have benefited over 500 students from 9 public schools in Marikina, Quezon City, and Navotas City. So building off what Ms. Booth said in the earlier video, providing our public school students the opportunity to get exposed to the work of our local artists, both the masters and the contemporaries, is an important part of providing excellent, inclusive, and relevant education, especially with the way that we've seen our students respond to the works of these artists, how they saw na walang mali sa artwork, like a student said, because nakadepende siya sa paano natin titingnan yung artwork, or how some of them expressed that some of the artists that they saw express something negative, like injustices, in a way that was compelling and makes you think. And also in the way that the students said that art isn't just for display, but also something that you can take away learning from. That there is always something behind an artwork that invites you to think deeper and reflect on, especially when it comes to current issues. We can see how through exposure to art, our students are able to see the world around them more differently, to be able to look at current issues more deeply, and to also think outside the box for what actions they can take accordingly. But then, as you know, the pandemic happened. So in 2020, we saw a completely new academic situation and in an unprecedented way of delivering and receiving education from our public school students. So here's a snapshot of what it looks like on the ground. So you'll see like a before and after comparison of what like a teaching load, meaning like what our teachers do on the ground. And you can also imagine how that might be reflective of the way that students are receiving their education from before and during the pandemic school year. So because a majority of our student households have little to no access to the internet, many of our public school students have had to resort to modular learning. So this means printing out learning modules and leaving it up to the parents to guide their students, especially if the students are on the young side, or to leaving it up to the students themselves if they're on a like higher grade level. So this also means that communicating and coordinating between teachers and parents are at an all-time high, which while there's a good side to it, the flip side also is that teachers also now have to rely on parents as their co-teachers, and they have to rely on them to as partners to ensure that learning continuity happens amongst our public school students. So how does arts education factor into all this? So midway through 2020, TFP and the Ateneo Art Gallery got together to brainstorm on how we might be able to continue bringing relevant education to our public school students in a way that is appropriate to the times, as well as contextualized to our students' household situation. Honestly, virtual field trips had initially been on the table, and that really would have been the easy way out. However, given community and household context where access to the internet is a struggle, we decided to take a leaf out of that Ed's book and bring it closer to home. So one of our key collaborations this year with the Ateneo Art Gallery is in creating self-learning modules that incorporate works of art created by Filipino masters and contemporary artists into Araling Panlipunan lessons. The lessons are based on the official DepEd K-12 curriculum, and the workbooks are designed in accordance to the teaching guide for Araling Panlipunan. Artworks are used, so the artworks that you see, the thumbnails here, these artworks and some others are used for springboard activities throughout the workbooks. So through guide questions, we encourage students to use the artwork as a point for reflecting on issues that affect their lives on 3 aspects: as an individual, as a member of their community, as well as a citizen of our country. These modules are also designed to be complementary teaching and learning resources for Araling Panlipunan teachers as well as students. And we have plans on distributing these to partner schools, not just to schools where TFP's programs are currently at, but also to the wider network of partner schools that the Ateneo Art Gallery has. Admittedly, though, these modules, while creating these self-learning modules, where we can bring the museum to where the students are, and students also continue to have exposure to art, is a good idea. It also has its limitations. Designing arts-focused classes for remote learning isn't easy. Art activities, especially ones that you have to make art, by nature are hands-on. So to say that it's challenging really is an understatement. But if we look at this challenge as an opportunity to innovate, to think outside the box, and to grow as art educators, then maybe it might also be easier for us to say challenge accepted. Because as we know, arts education, even amid the pandemic, should still be deemed important. If we ask why, I encourage you to look back at the video that we saw earlier, exactly for all the reasons that our kids said in that video. So at least for the Philippines, we believe in developing children holistically so that they grow up to become responsible citizens of our country. We believe that it always starts with the self, and recognizing that we, our students, they have the power and the capacity to make the change within themselves. Exposure and expression afforded by arts education gives them the license to create, a space to express issues close to their hearts. And so if we want our next generation to be creative, to be able to think out of the box solutions to problems both old and new, then exposure to the arts is one of the ways to develop that. Even more so, providing easier access to the arts to our public school students becomes even more critical given that 25 million children in the Philippines are enrolled in public schools around the country. 25 million is a quarter of our country's population. So that's our future being shaped as we speak. So these 25 million children are for whom we should work together to open a door to a whole new world for, and the reason why we should continue working together to deliver excellent, inclusive, and relevant education. But if there's one thing really that I'd like for you to take away from this presentation is to remember to anchor the work that we do on our kids. For me, the work will always be about and for Cassandra and for children like her whose dreams are fueled, strengthened, and expanded on by access to quality education. So I hope that's something that you can remember this presentation by. And with that, maraming salamat po. At naway patuloy lamang tayong magtulungan para sa bata at para sa bayan. And that's it.
Thank you, Angel. Grabe, super nakakamiss yung mga field trips that we used to do. So before we get into the Q&A, I will introduce our next speaker. So we'll chat more later. So our next speaker is Angelo Puyagkeng, Design Manager of Canva Manila. So as head of design at Canva Philippines, Angelo leads a growing design team of over 100 in-house creatives. So he supports Canva's local design teams initiatives in making an impact on users all over the world. He believes that anyone can make good design through design education. So now I will turn over the virtual floor to Angelo.
Thanks, Esty. Thanks everyone for joining this talk, and I want to thank the Ateneo Art Gallery for giving us this opportunity to speak about Canva. Let me share my screen. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Angelo. I'm head of design at Canva PH. And today I'll be talking about how Canva is changing the workplace and education experience to help people and businesses thrive in the pandemic. During the talk, I'll be giving a short introduction on Canva, and I'll also be taking two perspectives of how Canva is changing the workplace and education experience. So first, I'll be talking about how Canva is changing the workplace and education experience for our users through a discussion of the Canva for Education product. The second perspective is how Canva as a company is rethinking giving back as part of the business. And then I'll end my talk by discussing a little bit about how design is propelling our business forward. And before I start, I just want to give a little bit of a background on me. I graduated with a management engineering degree from Ateneo de Manila University, so the farthest thing from design. But I've always been interested in design. And luckily, my first job doing creative, I luckily got my first job doing creative and administrative work at a boutique design studio. And that really got me started in my 10 plus years in the design industry. I later did my graduate studies in design management from Savannah College of Art and Design. And after many years of doing client work for the likes of CNN US, CNBC, Nickelodeon, Google New York, McDonald's, Canva really caught my interest. It was largely due to the company culture and their mission. And that was to empower the world to design. It was an attractive mission to make design accessible to everyone and to anyone, no matter what their background was in design. So it really struck a chord with me because of my, when I first started my career, I really didn't have any experience in design. So it was something I was passionate about, democratizing design. So Canva is a product that is an inclusive one that seeks to empower everyone to design anything, publish anywhere with every ingredient in every language on every device. And it really started with a problem. Creating good design is complex. It entails a lot of time and money. So from purchasing software, usually these things are very expensive and usually catered for pros. Studying design, which takes a lot of time and money. Purchasing all the ingredients that you need to create a design. So stock photos, stock videos, fonts, elements, these things cost money. And once you're ready to start, you're actually jumping back and forth between very complex and very different programs. So at Canva, we tried to make things simple and integrated. You simply had to access one platform to do all the tasks that you need to create a good design. And you could just use our free version. And for more features, you could pay a subscription fee that was a lot more affordable than other design tools. You could collaborate online, have access to all the ingredients you will need, and design with the drag and drop functionality. So Canva is an online design tool that enables you to easily create beautiful and engaging designs. And you will have thousands of templates to choose from. We always try to put our users' experience at the forefront, and one way that they can have a great first experience is through our beautifully designed templates. Most people who don't have a background in design struggle with making a design from scratch. And so we put a lot of effort in creating beautiful templates in different formats our users may need so that it becomes a good starting off point for them. During the pandemic, a lot of people transitioned online, and we saw a great opportunity to support the different needs of different people. When we look at our mission, empower the world to design, and when we look at the different parts of that mission, empowering everyone, that also includes empowering every classroom to design. While we did launch an education product prior to the pandemic, we really kicked things into high gear to provide more value to our educators who are struggling in this new online world. Just as a point of comparison, we do have a free product which allows you or which gives you already a lot of options and features to design with. However, we saw a need from our educators. So our Canva for Education product, similar to our nonprofit program, is a premium version of Canva, similar to our pro subscription model. And the Canva for Education product, while having all these premium features, is actually free for educators, and teachers can actually invite their students into their account for free as well. Okay. So as part of this program, the Canva for Education product, educators would get access to more than 60,000 beautifully designed templates, most of which are designed here in the Philippines, which is a really a point of pride from our design team. They would also get free unlimited access to millions of premium photos, videos, and illustrations, basically anything you would need to design. You'd also get a collaborative space where you can invite your students to design through our platform with collaborative tools and templates, so people can actually, multiple students, teachers can actually jump on the same design and start designing together. And this allows for a more collaborative environment. They can actually design and discuss with students for a more meaningful learning. And then finally, we also made sure to comply to security and privacy standards so that it's absolutely safe for users, even those below 13 years of age. So in the past year, we've also made sure that we localize a lot of our content to provide more value to our users. So users in different locations around the world have different style trends or even needs in terms of the document formats or document types. And so we really started creating more localized content like these Pinoy elements. We also have been ingesting a lot of Filipino-made fonts and by Filipino designers. And these things kind of make things more engaging and more identifiable for students and teachers alike. We also made sure to cascade that idea to our template so that our users can visualize the content that they make on Canva. So these are just some of the examples or of localized templates that you can access in Canva. So we put in mock content that you can actually see here that are very localized in the Tagalog language, in terms of the content as well. Yeah. We also made sure to evangelize the product to educators to help them transition to an online world. We realized that teachers don't necessarily know about Canva and how they can use it to their advantage. So we really made sure to put a lot of effort in evangelizing the product. And we actually partnered with DepEd and with Angel's team at Teach for the Philippines, so that we can reach far-flung areas and schools that are in dire need of support. We also partnered with vpLenny's team last year to provide support to educators. We helped design promotional materials for them and supply visual assets for their video series for educators. And then to round it all out, we even created an exclusive Facebook group for Filipino teachers. Our community team manages the account and addresses important questions or even requests that teachers may have. It has become a very vibrant group where teachers share their own designs and methods to their fellow teachers. So some of those you can see here in these screenshots. And the results of the past year were really amazing. Here's a quick look at how teachers have responded to the Canva for Education offering.
I'm Ryan Alvin Torrejos, and I work as a teacher at German European School, Manila. Pursuing teaching as a profession was serendipity.
I was inspired by one of my teachers when I was in elementary.
There is this sense of fulfillment when I can influence
the positive changes I see in their lives.
I think the pandemic has affected my job as a teacher.
I have to make a lot of adjustments,
which we didn't expect. And
suddenly, we were pressured
to go out of your comfort zone, which is the four corners of the classroom, and do things you've never expected to have done in the past.
It is so hard to make a great connection to my students without being physically present beside them.
Hindi ka sigurado kung naintindihan ng mga bata ang kanilang mga lessons. Where I'm from, not all are able to do virtual classes, and so this will really be difficult for us As teachers,
Hindi po ako maalam sa computer. Hindi po ako maalam sa ibang mga platforms.
So kailangan naming matuto ng mga different apps at different softwares para magawa namin ito.
Marami po akong mga pinanood ng mga webinars. Isa na po dito yung webinar ng Canva. Ang Canva ang gumagabay sa akin upang lalo akong maging malikhain.
It is a tool which has all that I need, that helps me.
Create beautiful designs in the shortest time possible.
There are lots of animated pictures, stickers, and it made my lesson presentation more exciting.
There's just limitless possibilities.
The templates, there's always something new to match what you need.
A fun way to create lessons.
Halos nilalaro ko lang siya. Ginagamit ko siya ng paiba-iba at kung ano po yung effective.
Kapag kakailanganin kong gumawa ng mga instructional materials,
lesson plans, activities,
mga presentations at short videos,
ay meron akong Canva na masasandalan.
It has changed the idea that you cannot teach properly if you're outside the classroom. You can, with the help of visually appealing designs, with the help of engaging designs.
Kung sakaling ma-invite ko na ang mga bata sa Canva class, i-encourage ko silang mag-explore.
I can do collaborative activities for my students using it.
The students really feel like kasama pa rin nila yung mga teachers nila, tuwang-tuwa yung mga bata.
Canva is absolutely making my job easier.
It has helped me now, and I think it will help me even more in the future.
Sa pagiging miyembro po ng Canva for Filipino Teachers ay ipinakilala ko sa aking mga kapwa-guro upang pasukin din nila ito.
I would still be using Canva even when students are allowed back into their physical classrooms. I would still be using Canva for years to come, and I would still be using it for the same things that I use it now.
Para ma-excite silang pumasok sa araw-araw.
They will love it.
I would definitely recommend Canva to all my co-teachers and all the other teachers I know.
It is truly a gift because hindi mo hiningi, binigay sa'yo.
Alam ko na ang Canva ay magiging malaking parte ng inyong buhay.
So if you want to learn more about Canva for Education, you can check out our website, canva.com/education. And so apart from our users' perspective, Canva as a company also rethinks how we give back. That is present in our workplace. A big part of Canva is our culture, and that is really rooted in our values. So these are our values. Be a force for good, empower others, be a good human, make complex things simple, pursue excellence, and set crazy big goals and make them happen. And these values inform our decisions and the way we kind of give back. It has become integral in making giving back or being a force for good a part of our business, and not just as an afterthought to give back or a publicity stunt. It really is embedded in our business. Employees are encouraged and also can commit part of their time at work for Force for Good initiatives. And we also have committed a certain amount of our budget to Force for Good initiatives. And I think that's what kind of makes our business different from other companies. So pre-pandemic, we provided a lot of support to different communities through partnerships with NGOs and providing support in calamity relief. And pandemic world was no different. Luckily, we have a designated Vibe team. So that's what we call the team, Vibe. And they ensure our company culture is present in our different offices and our different initiatives. And part of their work is to support our Force for Good initiatives. So during the pandemic, our Vibe team kind of went above and beyond, and they have helped provide food to those in need, donated PPEs to relevant communities, and so on. So these are just examples of the food drive that we did at the start of the pandemic. So at Canva, we do have in-house chefs that provide meals to the employees, but since the pandemic happened, we kind of shift the chefs at Canva kind of shifted their focus and provided meals to different communities who were in need at the time. So I think there were about more than 6,000 meals that were donated to different organizations and institutions. And then more recently, with the rise of community pantries, we helped design and print signages for more than 1,500 community pantries. We blasted our social media that we were providing help in this way, and we got 1,000 signage requests in just 3 days. And then additionally, we wanted to hit two birds with one stone. And we also helped 300 local farmers by buying their fresh produce. And then we donated them to 900 community pantries. So this is really like our values at work. Yeah. And then before I end the talk, being the head of design at Canva, I also wanted to talk about how design is propelling our business forward. So our mission in the design specialty at Canva is to make Canva PH a design center of excellence. We do this by trying to provide our creatives meaningful work. And this not only applies to giving them work that is in line with their strengths, but also allowing them to work on causes that are important to them. One way was to provide content to small businesses, and these are templates that are specifically geared for local businesses to use and make their lives a little easier. So here's a sample of that work. So that was the Canva for Negosyo, the Canva for Negosyo campaign that we did for small businesses in the Philippines. Some other projects that we got to work on as part of partnerships are, one example was the work that we did with Ateneo Art Gallery. So as part of the partnership, we were able to provide some templates. We were able to design some templates and assets for them to use as part of their collaterals and museum materials. And what drew us to this partnership were a few things. One, it was a meaningful project for our designers. Second, we were supporting education and the arts. And then finally, it was aligned with our mission to empower the world to design. We've also put a lot of focus in providing opportunities for inspiration, growth, and development for our creative team. So apart from brown bag sessions and learning allowances, we've also started design salons hosted by world-class creatives. So basically, design salons are creative talks for our creative team. And these are opportunities for our creatives to learn from other creatives that they might not otherwise have the opportunity to learn from pre-pandemic. So these are just examples of some speakers that we've had recently. We've had the founder of the Design Kids talk to our creative team, as well as Gemma O'Brien, a well-known designer and letterer. And then finally, we also made sure to meet higher demands in design by growing the design team during the pandemic. We saw the opportunity to provide stability to creatives who were having difficulty securing projects during the pandemic. And at the same time, we also wanted to grow talent within the company. So from about 34 creatives by the end of 2019, when I first started, we grew to about 50 mid-2020 and almost 100 by the end of 2020. Now we are over 100, 110 creatives in Canva PH. And those are from different schools, including Ateneo and their information design program. And so we really recognize the value of design, and we made sure that we had the right people to give that value. So yeah, I think that's about time for me. So thank you for listening to me talk about how Canva is trying to rethink different parts of education and the workplace. And I hope you enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelo. So can we invite Angel to turn on her camera? Okay. So thank you for your presentations. They were both so inspiring. Parang sobrang na-miss ko talaga yung work, especially on-site. So before we start, we would like to invite the attendees to send in their questions through the Q&A box below. So I guess to start the Q&A, I wanted to mention that aside from external collaborations, I noticed that both TFP and Canva are very strong on company culture. So very crucial yung internal collaborations. So how do these internal collaborations work to make the external collaborations possible? So how do you work internally?
Do you want to go first, Angel?
Yeah, okay lang. So in Teach for the Philippines, we're compared to Canva, we're a smaller team. We're a much leaner team. Overall in HQ, so in our head office, we have like about 40 people supporting like 100-ish people in the field, including not just the teachers but also the ambassadors who are in the offices. So the relative smallness of our head office teams makes it relatively easier also for cross-functional work. So a lot of the work that we do, so one of the things that's very critical also for Teach for the Philippines in terms of living out our core values is working as a team. So maraming meetings una sa lahat. So yung practical application nun ay maraming meetings kasi kailangan mag-align. Kasi naiintindihan din especially ng HQ, ng head office na parang kung meron mang gumalaw or merong decisions or actions that need to be decided on at the head office, it may seem like a small thing for us at the head office, but it might be like a huge jump in terms of pivots in the field. So we found that especially amid like a remote work environment, it's especially critical. Communication is especially critical. That works both at all levels. So not just like from top down to bottom up, but also laterally across different teams who are working with and for our teachers and also our ambassadors in the field. So in terms of like how internal collaborations or internal teamwork has affected external partnerships, that's how it goes. So it doesn't just like reflect in partnerships, for example, that we have with Ateneo Art Gallery, even with Canva. So fun fact, Canva also helps Teach for the Philippines out because Canva also has provided Canva for Education accounts to our teachers, and have also, Angelo himself has done the training for our teachers to use the platform. So aside from that, those kinds of partnerships, we also have partnerships with our public sector partners, like the local governments, with whom we have like our training team, even our admissions team, have to work hand in hand and very closely with our government relations and placement team to make sure na parang in terms of supply and demand, supply meaning the teachers that we field out in the field, there is like need and value for them in the placement assignments that our government partners require them to do. So ganun siya nangyari. So communication really is like critical for us at Teach for the Philippines.
And then at Canva naman, we are a big team. And just in the design team alone, we are more than 100 in the Philippines. And there are even more globally. So at Canva, things are very collaborative. The way we kind of organize ourselves is not just in teams, but also like in terms of specialty. So for example, kami design specialty, so our expertise in design. There are other specialties within Canva like engineering or marketing and stuff like that. So uh, uh, so these specialties also kind of help us when we reach out or we provide support in terms of collaborations externally. For example, uh, partner organizations reach out to us because we have a particular specialty that we can provide. So, for example, design or education or support in a particular field, we can provide that. So I think having that kind of organization also helps us have a clearer kind of way we can contribute to external partnerships. And then, like I mentioned during my talk earlier, um, the company is really fueled by the values that we have. And part of that is our being a force for good. So um, having that kind of value embedded into the company, our employees are really encouraged to support causes that they feel very strongly for. And the business is also very supportive of those initiatives. So like I mentioned during my talk, but I didn't, elaborate on it too much. So all our employees can actually spend part of their work time doing Force for Good initiatives. So that won't be taken against you. You can actually spend time on that as part of your normal work day. And then additionally, the founders of the company have also pledged us a percentage of earnings and the budget to any Force for Good initiative. So we really would like to be a force for good and help support different initiatives from whether it's education or nonprofits. Um, these are really like rooted in our values and embedded into the company.
Okay, so we have some questions already coming in. So first we have a question via Facebook Live from Sofia Santiago. So hi Sophia. Sophia was actually one of our collaborators in the previous projects with Teach for the Philippines. So Sophia asked, how can design and art help fill in the gaps in pandemic learning? Is an interdisciplinary approach something that is encouraged?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
sige, go ahead, Angel.
Hi, Sophia. Si Sophia actually is a Teach for the Philippines alumna. She taught in a public school in Quezon City as part of our first cohort of teacher fellows in 2013. She now continues to work in the art space, specifically in museum education. So hello, Sophia, shout out, ganyan. So to your question specifically, for me, and I think I touched on this a bit in my talk earlier, parang I think what makes arts education in particular important, especially amid the pandemic year, is that exposure and also expression provided for by the arts helps our students be able to have the license to create and express themselves, and also like find their voice in expressing the issues that are close to their hearts. So in that sense, parang sa ganung paraan din, kaya din mas critical siya sa panahon ng pandemya na parang hindi natin alam pare-pareho kung ano necessarily yung nangyayari at wala rin masyadong kasiguraduhan. And so being able to express like how we feel or how we would choose to cope amid these uncertain times, it's an opportunity for art and exposure to the arts and expression through the arts can help fill in. So like in terms of approaching like yung paano ba natin pwedeng gawin yung arts education. So I'm personally not like an educator. I'm just exposed to a lot of trainers, but I think that an interdisciplinary approach is also helpful. I think not just for arts education in particular, but education in general. Kasi kumbaga parang kapareho din ng paniniwala ng TFP na parang yung lahat naman, yung problema natin or yung challenges natin sa education, it's not, it's a wicked problem is what we call it in PFP, meaning wala siyang one root cause, and so therefore wala rin siyang one root solution. And for problems like these, it's especially best if we are able to work together with different sectors, with different disciplines, take what are the best and most applicable practices from different disciplines and put them together, so that we arrive at a solution that is most appropriate for the challenge that we have at hand. So, nag-attempt ako na mag-isip ng concrete na example. So, kumbaga parang, ganun din naman kasi yung proseso ng pag-create, ng pag-produce ng art, di ba? Na parang, you take ideas from everywhere and you synthesize them to create something new or something different from the origin where it came from. And I think for education and for educating or facilitating learning for our kids, that is also one of the best approaches to take.
Angel really touched on a lot of really good points there. So I'll answer this question a little differently, no? So Angel touched upon like the arts part of the arts and also an interdisciplinary approach to education. So siguro my answer naman is more on the design side of things. So just to differentiate a little bit, no? So design for me is a little different from art in that it is it's basically at the root of it, design is really problem solving. Okay, so it's not necessarily just aesthetics, no. Although aesthetics play an important part in design, but design is really about functionality and providing functionality through solving problems. Okay, and at Canva, we do have design as a visual problem solving medium, I guess, in that we provide opportunities for those who don't have a background in the arts or design to be able to create more engaging materials for their students. And then apart from that, like I mentioned, design is really problem solving and providing functionality. We really think about the features that we provide our users at Canva. So when everything kind of moved towards remote, we really put a lot more effort while it was in our roadmap to create more features for the online world. We kind of sped things up. So for example, yung collaborative features that we have that are very helpful for our students and teachers, they can all kind of jump into a document and start designing together or brainstorm on things together. Those are things that design was able to kind of provide in kind of filling that gap for the online learning or remote learning in the world. In terms of interdisciplinary approach, I speaking for design, like at Canva, it is something that I would highly encourage. Design is again not just aesthetics, no. It's a combination of different fields coming together. It's a combination of different fields coming together to provide an elegant solution to a problem. So it's actually having that interdisciplinary approach, having different fields, different disciplines coming together that create very exciting results and solutions. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered that question.
Okay, so our next question is from Katrina De Bustos. So she asked, how can you help the teachers in rural areas with limited or no access to the internet? So Canva, for instance, has no offline mode, and teachers in these areas are relying heavily on government-issued modules that sometimes do not even reach these far-flung areas. So maybe, Angelo, you can start.
Sure. That's a really good question. It's something that honestly we've also struggled with because the nature of our product is really, it is an online tool, and so some things that we really tried to provide, uh, the I think our engineers have tried to make the product as lightweight as possible, especially for mobile. We know that the mobile device is sometimes the easiest way people have access to the internet, especially to the farther flung areas of the Philippines. In terms of like having no offline mode, yes, that is still something that we are struggling to kind of find an answer for. But in the meantime, we have partnered up with different organizations so that we can provide support in other ways. So, for example, we have partnered with some organizations that would design the materials that they need, and then because Canva also has a printing business or a printing feature. So if you design anything on Canva, you can actually print it out through our service. So we provide support for those areas by taking those designs and actually printing them out for our partners, and they kind of use those printed materials for the modules and the learning materials that they use for their kids. So yeah, so we are continuously trying to find ways how we can provide support in those areas, but for now, those are like some of the things that we are currently doing. Yeah, I think Angel might be able to give a better answer here.
No, actually, I was also going to build off your answer. So I guess to paint a picture also of what happens in the field, especially yung using yung Canva platform. So as mentioned earlier, Canva is helping also TFP in like building, scaling up like our, not just our teachers who are under our program, but also their co-teachers in the public schools. So one of the ways, one of the workarounds na naisip ng mga teachers natin sa field ay, so number one, totoo yun, na parang hirap talaga sa internet. May mga areas talaga na malayo at hirap sa internet. So yung ibang workaround na ginagawa ng mga teachers natin sa field, yung school nila parang nagiging hub. So yung school, kung may access sila sa internet, yun yung parang nagiging hub kung saan nag-gather sila teachers, not just to print the modules, but also parang in the same way na parang ginawa ng teachers natin in the field, they gather their co-teachers one day and then had the training with all the teachers together in the school so that they can use the school's internet. So I think one of those sessions was actually also facilitated by Angelo, di ba sa Malay, sa Aklan? So sa Malay, Aklan, ganun yung mga teachers ng TFP na naka-assign doon sa school na yun. So they reached out to Angelo to like help them facilitate a design workshop for their co-teachers. And then because kumbaga pwede naman sila mag-practice ng social distancing sa school nila at saka required din naman kasi talaga mag-physically report yung mga teachers natin sa school every so often. They used that opportunity to essentially create like a virtual training session where Angelo was the facilitator and then the teachers got upskilled with skills in design. So admittedly, it may not necessarily be the same case like in further flung areas, but that's a workaround that might be replicated if especially the platform is heavily reliant on the internet.
Siguro related na rin dun sa discussion. I'm a bit curious about how you guys find opportunities to collaborate with others. Kasi for example, in our case with Ateneo Art Gallery, I was able to get in touch with both Canva and TFT because I knew someone from within these companies. So usually, how do you go about finding these opportunities to collaborate with others?
Yeah. Maybe I can start this one. So actually, a lot of our partnerships, our partners kind of reach out to us, similar to what you did, ST, no? And it's usually because they see uh, uh, a need that we can provide. So, for example, whether it's like design or um, uh, education or something like that, we can actually provide, that kind of service. Uh, in terms of, paano ba? For 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 the other way around naman, for us to kind of reach out to organizations, sometimes it goes parang the same way na we see a particular need that we don't have a specialty in, and by partnering with other organizations, that's kind of like or other organizations that have that kind of specialty or expertise in, parang that kind of works out the best. So for example, the partnership that we did for with the Angels team at Teach for the Philippines, parang it was a mutual parang mutually beneficial, because um, uh, Angels team was looking for support in terms of the educational piece, in terms of making things or making design more accessible to teachers, and at the same time, for us, we wanted to evangelize the product to our teachers who we felt needed the product the most. So it was really like finding people. I think this goes back to that question earlier about the interdisciplinary approach, no? So we're finding ways to collaborate with these different expertises that we have. So yun. Sorry, I think I kind of rambled on, but I'll pass it off to Angel para she can also elaborate on her side of things.
It's actually very much the same. Parang it all revolves really around like what sort of need is there and who would be the best person or organization who can address that need. So it goes the same for Teach for the Philippines. Our partnerships for the most part are a combination of us knowing that we need something for a particular challenge, and then we we ask around our network or like look it up online na parang who is the best subject matter expert on this particular issue, then we tap that individual or organization to help us out. And it's the same, it's also the other way around na parang when there are organizations who have a particular need and they feel like Teach for the Philippines is an organization that can fill that need, edi pwede tayong mag-partner. So parang ganun lang din siya, parang supply and demand and need and assets leveraging. Kumbaga there's a need and then you leverage the asset of each other in order to like come up with the best and most appropriate solution possible.
It's a lot of cold calling and like finding these connections, like you mentioned, ST, no? Parang we usually ask our employees, oh, do you know anyone from DepEd? Do you know anyone from ganyan? And that's really how we find the right people to contact.
Okay, so we have another one from Katrina De Busto. So Canva has an amazing array of designs available that can greatly improve how students learn. So right now, the students are learning from plain Word documents that have no visuals, which is sad most especially for the younger ones and those who are visual learners. It would be great if you guys can also extend this partnership to moms and teachers. So Canva has the Canva for Education available for teachers, right?
Correct. So Canva actually works as like a freemium model. So you can actually sign up for free and you will have access to a lot of designs already. I think more than 8,000 templates and other elements that are free that you can use. Most of the Pinoy elements that we have that I showed earlier during my talk, I think those are free. So you can actually start off by using a free account if you're not eligible for like the education program. Now for the Canva for Education program, that's also free. It will be parang premium features, but you'll get those features for free. You don't have to pay. As long as you're an educator and that you can prove that you're an educator. And we can upgrade your account. So for the education program naman, the Canva for Education product, that has a lot more features. You'll have access to the more than 60,000 templates that we have, and like more premium fonts and elements that you can use for your worksheets. And additionally, I think with a free account, I think you can actually search for some educational templates already. So mga worksheets, presentations, you can actually start using those already. So so for Katrina, that's definitely something that you can already start using as long as you have a Canva account. There's a lot of things that you can do already, and then depending on what you actually do, if you're an educator, it's easily upgradable as long as you apply through our Canva for Education program. Thank you.
Ayan, so I love Canva daw. So I think we addressed most of the questions. Maybe you both have questions for each other. Like Angelo, do you have a question for Angel? Or Angel for Angelo? Or Angels?
Paano put ako on the spot? I actually don't have a question right now, but I would like to really commend Angel and her team. They've been doing a lot of really great work, and like conducting these design sessions for them. Like they really have shown me how how big a need that we're filling in the education space, not just the Canva side, but also like what Teach for the Philippines is doing. And a lot of the teacher leaders that they have are really passionate about what they're doing, and they've poured in a lot of work and effort and their time to really fill a gap that is really important in society today. So yeah, no questions really, more on like a great job.
I think Miss Boots actually has a question for you.
Sure.
Hi, thank you. It's been very interesting listening to your sharing, your presentations, and it's actually very how they say, comforting that Ateneo Art Gallery is collaborating with two companies or entities that are very much driven by values. So that's very important. I think that's really very important for us. I just want to ask Angel, since TFP started, and I know you have a few fellows. I'm not sure. At least one we know is with CHED. Have you seen any change in educational policy that runs parallel with the vision of TFP? It may not be directly because of your alumni's initiatives, but something that probably trickled into the policymakers.
So trying trying to form coherent sentence. Yes, so to the question, like, change, just to check for understanding on the question. So did you mean like how our alumni, for example, who have been working with and or are assigned currently in offices like in the Department of Education have been able to like work with policymakers to create like more relevant policies? Okay. So, yung isa po sa mga favorite ko na concrete stories about like how our alumni have worked with policymakers to like create relevant, a relevant policy that has affected or is affecting our public school system is one where we had a former fellow. So we call the former fellows the ones who graduated from the 2-year commitment alumni. So we had an alumni who became part of the ambassadors program who got assigned to the office of a senator. And the senator then was part of the committee on education. So one of the things that she experienced when she was a fellow was that she was assigned in a school in Marikina. And when she was a fellow, she always had this student who came to class and then just slept through the whole class. So when she dug deeper, she found out na parang, kaya pala natutulog yung bata tuwing uma-attend ng klase. Kasi pagod siya, galing siya nagtrabaho. Tapos papasok siya sa klase na gutom, tapos wala siyang baon. Wala rin kasi siyang baon na pera pambili ng pagkain. So matutulog na lang siya para hindi niya necessarily maramdaman yung gutom. So, pero dahil din tulog siya sa klase, wala siyang natutunan kasi tulog siya ng buong klase. So nung fellow siya, understood naman yung fellow na kumbaga, nandun lang siya for 2 years. Hindi naman din sustainable kung siya yung magsusustento dun sa bata para bigyan siya ng pabaon araw-araw. So, part din naman si fellow nung nagpa-facilitate ng feeding program ng school at part din yung batang yun ng feeding program ng school. So, yun yung kind of like the immediate solution to that particular issue. But when she became part of the ambassadors program and then got assigned to the office of the senator, part of the work that she did in that office was to become part of the technical working group that did the research and the work that got put into what is now a law ng batang masustansyang pagkain para sa batang Filipino, which is based on, and also the Zero Food Waste Bill. I think it's also now a law if I'm not mistaken. So those two laws are based on her experience na parang, which also fueled like her desire and also motivation to push for that law na parang yung excess na, syempre hindi naman expired, excess but not expired na food ng mga restaurants get put into a food bank and then those get redistributed to public schools across the Philippines. So that was rooted in her experience, having like seen and experienced what it's like in the public schools for 2 years. So yun, among many others, kasi marami rin tayong alumni na sa DepEd ngayon nagtatrabaho. Full-time na. So coming from having been assigned to work there for just a year, they got absorbed and now are regularized as part of many different offices in DepEd.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Ay, sige, go ahead, Angel.
Ms. Woods also had we have a question from RA. In the chat.
Yeah. This is from our team. So for Angel, I saw in the presentation that you had to train teachers also on video production. So how were you able to conduct this and what were the challenges? Sige, ikaw muna.
Yes, so as a communication arts graduate, it was very challenging to conduct like video, actually production classes remotely. For our teachers. So we basically had to have them last year undergo crash courses on video design and also radio production, primarily because it was what we projected na parang ano din yung mangyayari na way of delivering education in the coming school year. So the way that we did it was online, of course, because all our classes then, even the training that we provided to our fellows were held online. So kumuha rin kami ng external facilitator who was a subject matter expert on video production. And then had them, like, may 2 parts kasi lagi yung training sessions ni TFP. And Angelo also knows this because he did this for us. So merong lecture portion, tapos may application portion. So may basic principles na parang what makes good videos, what makes engaging videos, and then after that, we recommend an app that would be easy for them to use and also light to download on that they can also just use on their phone and not necessarily install on their laptops. Kasi kagaya din na nabanggit kanina, phone na din ngayon mas madalas yung ginagamit siya mas easily accessible and usable for teachers than laptops. And we did just that. So we also had naging sobrang useful din yung parang pag-crash course sa kanila on video production because we also had to rely on our teachers to create like the video versions of the student development programs that I mentioned earlier. So our functional literacy programs and life skills programs all used to be delivered in person. But because of the way that we had to like contextualize the way that we deliver our programs to make sure that na parang kumbaga nasasakop natin yung lahat ng konteksto ng mga communities and households natin, nagkaroon din siya ng video version. So dahil sila teachers din yung mas nakakaalam kung ano din yung best na pwede sa mga estudyante at dun sa mga parents na manonood ng videos, sila din yung nag-create. And so naging helpful din yung crash course. But also we had to do like, meron din, may soft skills tsaka may technical skills portion din kasi yung training. And part of the technical skills training wasn't just like providing them an app to use, but also like teaching them how to do a production setup na DIY na hindi mo kailangan bumili ng yung pang wedding videography na, na lights and setup na parang paano mo to pwedeng gawin using just your phone and like the flash of your phone, etc. And your like earphones as mic. So, yun. So far, if you want to see like the output for that, yung mga videos po na yun ay nasa YouTube. Pwede niyo po silang i-search para makita niyo po yung output.
For Angelo naman, aside from printed or digital designs, is there a feature that will help educators create videos or animations?
Short answer is yes. And then the long answer is siguro we've been continuously kind of improving the features that we have, and like I mentioned, like making everything integrated. So unlike other programs, you only have to access one platform and you can do design and video and animation in one place. So and again, this is we try to make it as easy as possible. So yung video features that we have at Canva, you can actually make transitions, animations for your text, for your elements. We have stickers that you can use for your videos, and then we also have a timeline where you can use to edit your slides like a video. And then we also have a lot of videos, stock videos that you can use for your needs. And then for teachers in particular, one of the features that we really tried to launch last year was talking presentation. So you can actually design your presentation, and then you can record a video. So you can have an inset of your face when you're talking, and it will record the video and audio over Canva as you go through your presentation as well. So that's also one way our teachers have been using, or our users who are teachers have been using the video and animation features of Canva to actually conduct their lessons, or so they just have to run through their presentation and they're able to send that video or talking presentation to their students. So they just have to access a link and they can watch it. Yeah, so that's the short and long answer of that for that question. So yes, we do have video and animation features.
I didn't know na actually na merong video feature pala yung Canva. So it's good that it was actually asked. So we have another question via FB Live from Non Centron Villanueva. So how do we design for collectivity and collaboration under pandemic constraints? I really appreciate how community building is strong online for both TFP and Canva. So I believe you both touched on this, but maybe you want to expound further.
Sure. I can probably start off this one naman. For so there are a few ways that we kind of engage our community, no? So we do have a community team that works with different, with groups on, let's say, Facebook or Instagram, and they reply to any concerns by our users. We often also see what features are most requested so that we can integrate it into our system. So in terms of community building, definitely through our social media channels, that's happening because we do have a team dedicated to also interact with our users. And then in terms of like collaboration and collectivity, I think I touched upon it a little bit earlier. So we do have collaboration features on Canva. So you can actually, again, jump into one design and start designing together, whether it's like a presentation or a video. You can actually work on those things together at the same time. The way we have used it in Canva internally is through building presentations together, and also brainstorming sessions. So we do have templates that you can use to do activities for engagement, for collaboration. So may mga worksheets kami that you can all jump in together and work on activities or like brainstorm templates that we have, so you can actually simulate the brainstorm experience in person. So parang putting post-its on the wall or marking good ideas. Those things we tried to replicate online through Canva. So our brainstorming templates can actually do that. So like we have parang post-its there that you can write on, and then you can kind of rearrange together as a group. So those are, I guess, some of the ways that we are trying to make collaboration easier under the pandemic constraints.
Okay. So building off what Angelo said, so kind of similar to like the way that Canva approaches this collaboration, or like making sure that there are opportunities for collaboration. For TFP naman, the way that we approach design, or at least designing like our materials for marketing, publicity, or even just like internal communications, is really making sure that we are anchored on clear, compassionate, and compassionate communications. In the sense na parang kumbaga, kagaya din nung nabanggit ni Angelo kanina, ang design hindi lang naman siya aesthetic lang. So parang sa likod nung maganda mong layout or sa likod nung magandang design, ano din ba yung gusto mong i-communicate? Kasi kumbaga parang one of the beliefs that we also stand on as an organization is that kumbaga, in order for us to be able to encourage collaboration or rally others to join the cause and like take action on something, we also have to be clear about what it is that we want to say, what we want to like share, and then what we want people to take action on. And so that is how we essentially approach our design, na parang bago natin isipin kung ano yung magiging itsura, ano rin ba muna yung gusto natin sabihin. Tapos base dun sa kung ano yung gusto natin sabihin, ganun natin siya i-design. And the way that we also communicate it, not just like on a design, like a graphic design level, but also how we say it, is also critical, in that we always have to have like the audience's language and also the audience's interests in mind. Because and I sana mag-agree si Angelo sa akin dito, pero yung tipong kumbaga parang yung design na maganda, yung magandang layout, hindi siya necessarily magiging effective kung hindi siya naiintindihan or hindi siya relevant doon sa dapat na makakita at mag-take action sa kanya. So parang one of the key principles that we stand by in terms of like approaching design at DFP is making sure that we are clear, but also also compassionate. Compassionate also comes from like the seed idea na we have to be putting ourselves in the shoes of those who are reading or seeing our material so that we make sure that kumbaga the way that we communicate is relevant to them and also answers what it is that they need and want to understand. So yun. So yun po yun. At least for designing towards collective action and also collaboration.
Okay, so yung question ko din actually, so we've all been affected by this pandemic. So since the pandemic happened, I'm sure a lot of us have shifted to doing new practices and the way that we work. So I wanted to ask, what's one thing that your team adapted or like is currently doing that you'd like to take forward in this new normal? Yes. So, Angelo, baka gusto mo mag-start.
Sure. So I think the way, luckily, I think the way we were kind of set up, it was an easier transition to like an online workplace. But some of the things that we've done to siguro create to still have that connection with other people and within the teams is really a lot of communication. So we do dedicate some time regularly to catch up on like what has to be done during the day, what are people doing, and we also try to make sure that there's also room for non-work things. So we do have sessions during work time that is not related to work. So it's really for building relationships with other people, especially since the pandemic. Parang we grew like thrice our size in the design team. So we try to engage our newer team members by having these more informal, more casual venues for them to make connections with the rest of their team. So as simple as like mga quiz nights, or parang we eat together, we'll order food and then we eat together, or even celebrations when we celebrate birthdays or celebrate wins of the team. We try to still do it together and still make a mini event out of it. And then siguro other things that we are doing to have that parang connection online is not on the connection side pala, but more on like importance. And siguro we know that during the pandemic, it's especially in the Philippines, it's been very, very stressful. So we've also made a lot of accommodations so that people can take care of their mental health. So we provided some ways that we can support them in that way. So we have mental health support through a partner organization that can provide professional help for our team. And then additionally, the team can also they have an allowance for them to use on mental health apps, so like meditation apps, things that can help them kind of relieve the stresses and the mental health challenges that they have. So those things are definitely probably coming with us as we move hopefully back to like normal physical interactions. Yeah.
So medyo same. Kaya rin tayo magkakasundo ganyan. Mutual but yeah, but yeah, kind of the same. So in at Teacher the Philippines, even before the pandemic kasi parang meron naman ng employee-driven na parang employee-initiated parang socialization nights. And I think those have gotten more, parang mas magdumalas din yung ganun during the pandemic, especially amid nga our need to be able to have human interaction that we can't because of physical restrictions. So the next best thing is like having virtual, like what Angelo mentioned, mga quiz nights, ganyan. Minsan may nagturo din ng Zumba, ganyan, na online, na employee driven. But as an organization, similar to like Canva, we have so we've always been like very keen on ensuring the mental health and mental well-being of like members of the organization. But in this past year, if I'm not mistaken, it started also like alongside when the pandemic like became a huge thing. We partnered also with psychosocial services in order to provide members of the organization with counseling if and when they need it, especially for our teachers in the field, because mental health, parang yung isa rin kasi sa mga madalas na sinasabi ng TFPI, caring for the caregivers. So our teachers essentially are our students' caregivers, and we want to make sure na parang well-supported din si teacher. So kasi kapag well-supported si teacher, kaya rin niya masuportahan na mas akma yung mga estudyante. So we beefed up essentially like the way that we're also supporting the mental health and well-being of our teachers by like partnering with psychosocial counseling services, specifically for our teachers, but also available for staff members. One thing though na na-discover namin as an organization, unlike sa Canva, hindi kami masyadong set up for remote work. So it's been a learning experience this whole year for us as an organization. But one of the things that have been clear for us as an organization is that there are pros and cons to working from home, and the pros of which siguro yung best man na pro na feeling ko na experience naman din ng karamihan ay yung hindi ka masastuck sa traffic kasi syempre nasa bahay ka lang, tapos yung travel mo lang ay from kama to laptop or your computer, gano'n. So parang ito yung isa sa mga practices siguro parang post-pandemic na pwedeng tingnan na pagpatuloy at kung paano siya best na-integrate din sa normal or like post-COVID work life, ganyan. Kasi so far, we've managed to become like productive and also effective as an organization despite not necessarily being optimized for remote work. And so currently we're looking at like what are those best practices that we've been doing in the past year that we might be able to take kahit na technically hindi naman na tayo like super limited in terms of travel and physical restrictions. Ayun, yun po yung saan.
Okay, so thank you. We have another question from Cali Infante. So, hi Cali. Cali was a former intern with Ateneo Art Gallery and now she works with Canva. So she's curious about the collaboration between, well, our collaboration. So how were the modules or materials distributed, and is there a possibility for it to be widely available for all Canva users, maybe as templates?
Okay. Well, ST can probably answer this also, but as far as I know, there's this is parang a one-off thing that we did for Ateneo Art Gallery. So it's we designed some templates for the specific use of Ateneo Art Gallery. So to some extent, may branding ng Ateneo Art Gallery. Especially with the use of like the fonts that they have and like the materials, the content that is there. And then in terms of like making it more widely available for Canva users, I don't think there's current plans to do that, as it is nga a very specialized parang thing that we did with Ateneo Art Gallery. ST, baka gusto mo sagutin yung question.
With regards siguro to distribution, we'll actually be printing out the modules we're developing. So we were able to develop the modules through one of the former TFP fellows, Kit Pabiona. And we'll be printing these out so we can distribute them to TFP's teacher fellows. Tama ba, Angel? So hopefully during the summer institute, which is happening this June, July.
July to August.
Ayan, July. Okay, so well, we're almost out of time. So I guess to wrap up the session, do you have any advice for up and coming designers or people who want to get into community engagement?
I can go first kasi kanina si Angelo. Kawawa naman siya. Okay. I'll take one for the team, Angelo.
Thank you.
For us, I guess as a representative for Teach for the Philippines, and I guess also as a design and also arts advocate, I think and this is something that I mentioned naman din earlier, in passing, is if we want to continue making sure that kumbaga, yung in terms of community engagement and or like getting into arts and design, especially amid the pandemic, we always have to anchor it on a why, like a reason. Bakit ko ito ginagawa? So, para saan ba ito? Para kanino ba ito? Parang yung commercial, diba? Para kanino ka bumabangon? Pero para dito sa work na gusto mong pasukin, bakit mo siya gustong gawin? Kasi, I think it applies naman din with all types of work, but more especially, I think we feel it in the arts and education space nowadays. Na the work isn't always easy, the work isn't always fulfilling, the work isn't always inspiring. And when the work gets tough, or as they say, when the tough gets going, one of the ways in which we can continue moving forward and like getting up in the morning to do the work is like going back to our why. So parang for me personally, it's like what I shared earlier, and it's also the type of why that we have as an organization, that the work that we do is always anchored on the kids and what the kids can do for our country, for our future. So for it might look different for different people, but I think in terms of advice, that would be what I can share, na parang bakit mo to ginagawa, para saan ba ito, tapos doon ka laging babalik. So whether it's a happy moment, at least alam mo na parang nakapag-contribute ka doon sa why mo. And if it's not necessarily like a happy moment, then you will always have to return to that why, to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. So yun po.
Thanks, Angel. I think you made it easier for me because I was gonna say something similar. And I think I just want to go back to like how I personally define design. It is really problem solving at the root of it. And graphic design in particular is really problem solving through visual communication. And I think a lot of, or hindi naman a lot of, but I think there are some designers who forget that design isn't just about aesthetics. It's really about providing utility or functionality to someone who needs it. And so for those who want to get into design, I think that's an important thing to remember. Kind of like a why then, to an extent. It also provides a lot of direction in terms of the way you think visually. It's really providing a solution for someone who is in need of it. And at Canva, we really strive to also to solve a problem, which is complexity in design, and try to make it more accessible and make it more widely available to anyone. So yun. So I think that's one thing that I want to siguro remind people who are getting into design, that it is it is problem solving, not just aesthetics. And also, one last thing from me, siguro, we are still hiring. So for those who are interested in a career in design, we are still hiring and we are still growing, and we would love to work with you too.
Sorry, meron pala akong palang hahabol. Dagdag lang din dun sa na-share na namin ni Angelo, especially in the sense of yung nabanggit ni Angelo na design isn't just aesthetic, it's problem solving. It's also like problem solving. So, especially in the context of community engagement and or maybe parang providing for or addressing a need of a particular community, one of the things that we have to balance with like our desire to help and also like our desire to address a need is ensuring that what it is that we have to offer is actually what that particular community needs. So, kumbaga parang, oo, gets natin na meron. Okay, so check na tayo sa why, check na tayo dun sa kung ano yung gusto nating maitulong or ibigay na tulong. Pero dapat check din natin na parang itong tulong ba na ito or itong approach na ito din ba yung nararapat para dun sa gusto nating pagbigyan ng tulong. Kasi one of the things that we wouldn't want to happen is like us as individuals or even as organizations impose a particular solution for a need that we think is a need but may not necessarily be a need for the people who are receiving the solution or like what we're trying to offer. So parang yun lang, dagdag lang dun sa nasabi, na-share na rin ni Angelo na parang balance lagi. Hindi lang, as with all relationships, diba, it's always a two-way street. It's not always just one person giving. There's also the other receiving and then the other also giving. So we also have to keep in mind na it's the same way with community engagement, that it's a two-way street and there always has to be like some sort of dialogue in order for us to achieve like the best and most appropriate solution to a challenge. Yun na po. Final na po talaga.
Okay, so thank you. Actually, yung naalala ko specifically when you guys were giving out your advice, yung may advice si Father Perios. It was actually very timely na mention sa akin earlier na huwag tanungin kung mahirap, tanungin mo kung mahalaga. And I think that's very relevant for the work that you're both doing. So on behalf of the Ateneo Art Gallery, I'd like to thank again our two angels, Angelo and Angel. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to have more collaborations with you guys in the future. Okay, so just to wrap up this session, we would like to invite everyone to follow TFP and Canva on their respective social media sites, and you can actually check out their websites. So the link is flashed here on our screen. So if you have any questions or inquiries, just go on to their website or their social media pages. So again, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And thank you.